conditioner hummed monotonously, like the only living thing in that cramped rental room. I sprawled on the sofa, the glow of my phone screen illuminating my face as my fingers scrolled listlessly. July nights were stuffy as a steam room. The air itself felt sticky. Beads of sweat trickled down my neck, but I couldn't be bothered to wipe them away. My phone buzzed, and a WeChat message popped up at the top of the screen. Asleep yet? The sender was labeled Lin Shuyan, a name I'd saved for 3 years but had barely ever chatted with. I didn't reply right away, staring at those 3 words for several seconds. Lin Shuyan, a senior from a different major in college, quite famous in the student union, clean-cut, soft-spoken, the type you only dare to admire from afar and never approach. We'd added each other on WeChat back then purely for work coordination on some event. After the event ended, our chat history hit pause, reduced to polite holiday well wishes. Just as I was wondering why he was contacting me, a second message arrived. Just got off work late. Passed by your place. Saw your window light still on. How did he know where I lived? Then I figured he must have seen a location tag on Moments, or heard from a mutual friend. I didn't overthink it and casually replied, not yet, too hot to sleep. After I sent it, the typing indicator appeared next to his name, flickered for a long time, and finally he sent just 2 words back, me neither. Those 2 words somehow felt ambiguous. I couldn't explain why. Maybe it was the late hour, maybe the weak AC, maybe because I'd been alone too long and any attention from the opposite sex got magnified. I didn't reply again, just set my phone face down on the sofa and closed my eyes, trying to sleep, but my mind churned with scattered thoughts. About 10 minutes later, I picked it up, not a message this time, but a voice call. The screen displayed Lin Shuyan. My finger hovered over the answer button for 2 seconds of hesitation before I finally swiped. Hello. His voice came through the earpiece, lower than I remembered, carrying that unique horses of staying up late like fines and paper brushing against my eardrum, somehow making my heart race. What's up? I asked, my own voice lighter than I'd intended. Nothing really, just wanted someone to talk to. He paused, as if choosing his words carefully. It's too quiet being alone. I didn't reply. Nothing but our breathing audible. That silence wasn't awkward, instead, it carried a strange mochimi, a wordless understanding, as if both of us had simultaneously exhaled, finally able to drop the pretenses. Is there a pot of potos on your windowsill? He suddenly asked. Instinctively, I turned to look at my window. In the dim lamplight, the potos leaves were indeed swaying faintly. How do you know? I'm standing downstairs, he said casually, like he was commenting on the nice weather. Looking up, I can see your window. The potos shadows on your curtain look pretty. I shot up from the sofa, my heart hammering like a drum. Pulling the curtain aside, I looked down. In the dim yellow glow of a street lamp stood a figure, white t-shirt, dark pants, phone pressed to his ear, gazing upward in my direction. Too far to see his expression, but I could imagine the slight smile on his lips, that gentle, impossible to refuse smile. What are you doing downstairs? My voice came out tight, even I could hear it. Thought I'd come up for a bit, he said, then paused and added, is that okay? 11:30 at night. A senior I'd barely spoken to, standing beneath my building, asking if he could come up. I'd probably have refused outright or made up excuses, but that night the heat, the loneliness, the potos he'd noticed, everything seemed to be pushed along by an invisible hand. Or rather, I didn't have time to overthink before I heard myself say, come on up. 6th floor, no elevator. He laughed, a low, deep laugh transmitted through the phone, like an evening breeze in summer. Okay, wait for me. After hanging up, I sprang into action like someone had flipped my switch, frantically tidying the room. Empty snack bags from the coffee table went into the trash. Clothes strewn on the sofa got scooped up and stuffed into the closet. I straightened the slippers, turned the AC down to degrees, even checked my reflection in the mirror and used some water to tame my sleep-mussed hair. Only after all that did I realize what I was doing, cleaning up for a man. At 11:30, before he'd even arrived, the automatic gesture struck me as funny, but my body was more honest than my brain. It had already made the decision for me. When the doorbell rang, my heart skipped a beat. I took a deep breath and pulled open the door. Lin Shuyan stood under the hallway light, leaner than I remembered, his jawline more defined. His eyes were the same, clean, gentle, like an unfathomable spring. He held a plastic bag containing cans of beer and a bag of peanuts. Thought you might not want to drink alone. He shipped the bag, smiling sheepishly. Is this too forward? I didn't answer, just stepped aside to let him in. As he walked past, his shoulder nearly brushed my arm, carrying with it a faint scent of laundry detergent, a clean smell of soap mixed with sun-dried cotton. A scent that felt too pure for such a late hour. My fingertips tingled. Just a brush passed, yet my body had already memorized that distance before my mind could. He sat on the sofa, glancing around like a small rental before his gaze landed on the puddles. Going well. He reached out and gently touched a trailing vine, his fingertips light as if afraid of hurting it. I sat beside him, a cushion between us, and popped open a beer can. It hissed, releasing cold vapor. We drank and chatted about this and that, word troubles, crazy landlords, a bad moody we both seen recently. The conversation flowed naturally. No awkward silences, no forced topics. When he spoke, he liked to look me in the eyes, not off-putting, but rather making me feel truly attended to. When I spoke, he tilted his head slightly, a faint smile at the corner of his lips, as if carefully savoring every word. By the second beer, he truly opened up. He said he'd recently broken up with his ex, who thought he wasn't romantic enough. No surprise gifts for holidays. No sweet talk when she was sick. She said I'm like a piece of wood, that I only know how to care for her quietly. But she couldn't feel that kind of care. He smiled bitterly, fiddling with his beer can. It's not that I don't want to express myself. I just don't know how. I'm afraid saying too much sounds fake, doing too much seems forced. Listen. I felt an unexpected twinge, not pity for him, but something hard to name. Hegel gave me a resonance like listening to someone who reminded me of myself. After a few seconds of silence, some people aren't bad at expressing themselves. They just do it clumsily. They need the right person to understand them. When I finished speaking, the air suddenly went quiet. He turned his head to look at me, his gaze deeper than before, as if seeking confirmation. Uncomfortable under his stare, I looked down and reached for my beer on the coffee table, just as I extended my hand. He reached for his at the same moment. Our fingertips touched like an electric shock and we both pulled back nearly simultaneously. Sorry, he said, the tips of his ears turning red. It's okay. My voice was calmer than I expected, but my heart was racing beyond belief. After a brief silence, he stood and walked to the window, pushing it open. The hot night air rushed in, carrying the sound of cicadas. Listen, he said. I walked over too, standing beside him, our arms nearly touching. Anticipated the lingering heat on my face. A street lamp below stretched the tree shadows long and thin. In the distance a dog barked once or twice. The world was so quiet, only the cicadas and our interwoven breathing remained. Actually, I wasn't just passing by today, he said suddenly, his voice so low it was nearly swallowed by the cicadas. I just wanted to see you. He turned and looked at me, close enough for me to see the curve of his eyelashes. I scrolled through our chat history for a long time and realized the last time we talked was last New Year's. I wanted to find a reason to contact you, but couldn't. Then I thought, screw it, I don't need a reason. I'll just go. His tone was flat, as if stating a fact, but that very calmness was more stirring than any sweet talk, because you knew he wasn't trying to flirt. He was just on you a thought he kept hidden for a long time, a careful, tentative thought. I didn't speak, not because I didn't want to, but because my throat felt blocked, unable to make a sound. Seeing my silence, he didn't push. He just smiled softly and reached out his hand, palm up, stopping in front of me. That hand had defined knuckles, long fingers, faintly glowing in the moonlight. I looked at his hand, then at his face. His expression was serious, too serious for a joke. Slowly I placed my hand in his. His fingers immediately closed around mine, enveloping my hand in his palm. His palm was dry and warm, his fingertips calloused. He held my hand with neither too much nor too little force. I called in something fragile. In that moment, all sound disappeared. The cicadas, the wind, the hum of the AC compressor all shut out, sealed away. I could only hear my own heartbeat, thudding against my eardrums, and feel the warmth of his palm, traveling along my veins all the way to my heart. Your hands are so cold, he said, his thumb gently stroking the back of my hand. Your hands are so hot, I said, my voice barely audible. He smiled, then a deep smile, his eyes curving into crescent moons. He didn't speak again, just held my hand as we stood before the window for several minutes. When he finally let go, I thought he was leaving, and a wave of inexplicable disappointment washed over me, but he didn't leave. He turned around, placing both hands on the windowsill behind me, half enclosing me between himself and the window. His close. I could see the weave of his t-shirt collar, smell the faint scent of soap mingled with the bitter note of beer. He lowered his head until his forehead touched mine, the tip of his nose brushing against mine, his breath spilling over my lips. His breath carried the slight bitterness of beer and the coolness of mint toothpaste, hot enough to make my scalp tingle. He just sat there, as if waiting for something, or savoring the closeness. My brain had completely shut down. I didn't know where to put my hands or feet. I just closed my eyes and felt the warmth of his forehead against mine, like two puzzle pieces fitting perfectly together. Is this okay? He asked him, his voice hoarse beyond recognition. Instead of answering, I tilted my chin up slightly, letting my lips brush lightly against his. That gesture was the clearest answer I could give. He finally kissed me very lightly, very slowly, as if testing the waters. In those few seconds when our lips met, I felt like I was soaking in warm water, my whole body going soft. His hands moved from the windowsill, one arm slid around my waist, the other threaded into my hair, his fingertips gently pressing against the back of my head, drawing me toward him. The kiss steamed from tentative to certain, like two dry riverbeds finally converging, greedily drinking in each other's warmth. I rose onto my tiptoes, looping my arms around his neck, my fingers tangling in the short hair at the nape. I could feel the heat radiating from the back of his neck. He made a low sound and pulled me tighter, his kisses moving from my lips to the corner of my mouth, along my jawline, until he paused by my earlobe and murmured, "I've wanted to do this for so long." "How long?" I asked breathless. "Since the first time I saw you," he said, his voice soft as a sigh. I smiled, cupping his face in my hands, my thumbs brushing his cheekbones, and kissed him again. This time there was no hesitation, no doubt. It was as if we'd both been waiting for this kiss for a very long time, putting all the unspoken words into that single act. His kissing skills not great, even a little clumsy, but that clumsiness made it feel real, made it feel safe, because you knew he wasn't performing, wasn't using technique to please you. He was just telling you, in the most direct way he knew, "I like you. I've liked you for a very long time." Later, we ended up back on the sofa, him at one end and me at the other, but our hands were still clasped, fingers interlaced, palms pressed together, neither willing to let go first. The AC blew cool air, the beer can still fizzing faintly. The TV had turned on at some point, playing some boring late-night shopping channel show, but neither of us was watching. He tilted his head to look at me, his gaze so soft it could melt, and reached over to tuck a strand of fallen hair. His fingertip grazed my earlobe, sending a shiver through me. "Your hair is so soft," he said, his fingers sliding from my ends to my tips, as if stroking a precious piece of fabric. "Your gaze is so hot," I shot back, unable to keep from smiling. He blinked, then laughed like a complete fool, sinking back into the sofa and pulling me into his arms. I rested against his chest, listening to his heartbeat fast and strong, as chaotic as mine. His chin rested on top of my head, his palm flat against my back, patting gently, like soothing a child to sleep. In that moment, I thought, so this is what ambiguity feels like. It's not grand earth-shattering vows, not carefully scripted sweet talk. It's a kiss in the dead of night, a pot of potos on a windowsill, and someone willing to stand outside your building just to see the light shining from your window. Outside, the cicadas sang on tireless, as if loudly declaring their love for this sweltering summer. I closed my eyes, unable to suppress my smile. His hand was still holding mine, his thumb rubbing the back of my hand in a slow, steady rhythm, a sensation so fine and so long, like an invisible thread pulling from my fingertips all the way to the bottom of my heart. I knew that from this moment on something had changed. This rental room, this potos, and the dry warmth of his palm, they would all become the softest parts of my memory, to be revisited again and again in the years to come. What is ambiguity? To me, that night was the sound of cicadas, the crisp crack of a beer can opening, the mingling of breath when his forehead touched mine, the lingering warmth and scent of another person on my lips after a kiss. Not intense, not melodramatic, but like a glass of warm wine, with a long, slow aftertaste that intoxicates you without you even realizing it. 没问题。继续翻译那年夏天，还没是蝉鸣声里的甜的续写部分。That summer, ambiguity was the sweetness hidden in the cicadas chorus continuation. After that night, the relationship between Lin Shuyan and me felt as if someone had quietly flipped a switch. The distance and unfamiliarity of before transformed into an ambiguous state, something that couldn't quite be put into words. Were we together? Neither of us had officially confessed. Were we still just friends? Or what kind of just friend sends a message in the middle of the night saying "I miss you," comes over on the weekend to fix a leaky faucet, or takes a detour a rainy day to pick you up from work? The most maddening thing about ambiguity is it makes you feel valued, remembered, but never gives you a definite answer, unable to go up or down. He started appearing in my life more and more frequently. Monday morning, I dashed into the company elevator just in time when my phone buzzed. His message, "It's colder today. We're more." I looked down at my thin shirt, and before I could reply, he sent a screenshot the weather app on his phone. location set to the area near my company, clearly displaying fields like 14. I stared at that screenshot for a few seconds, a mix of warmth and ache spreading through my chest. He'd even looked up where my company was. The first thing he did every morning wasn't checking his own weather, it was checking mine. Wednesday at noon, a delivery driver called asking me to come downstairs to pick up food. I said I hadn't ordered anything. The driver double-checked the phone number and said yes. It's for you, ordered by a Mr. Lin. I went downstairs, picked it up, and opened the bag. Inside was a bowl of tomato and egg noodles and a cup of hot red bean milk tea. I took a photo and sent it to him. You ordered this? He replied instantly, USA, the tomato and egg noodles from the noodle shop near your company were good. So I remembered. The milk tea was just to round up the order. I couldn't help but laugh. Round up the order? Since when did rounding up involve a cup of milk tea? This man was adorable even when he was being stubborn. I replied, thanks, Senior Lin. The noodles are good. The tea is sweet. Just 3 words. I read them over and over, always feeling like there was something hidden between the lines. Was he talking about the milk tea? Or about me? Both? That's ambiguity for you. Every sentence is a riddle. You guess and guess if you guess right. Your heart swells with sweetness if you guess wrong. You worry you're just flattering yourself. Friday after work, I just stepped out of the company gate when I saw him leaning against a lamppost across the street, coffee in hand, looking down at his phone. He was wearing a thin dark gray jacket, jeans, white sneakers, clean and neat, like someone who'd stepped right out of a magazine. My heart rate shot up. I took 2 deep breaths before walking over. What are you doing here? I asked, trying to keep my voice normal. He looked up, and his eyes lit up a momentary brightness, so quick that if I hadn't been staring right at him, I would have missed it completely. I was in the area, figured you'd be off work around now, so I thought I'd try my luck. He handed me the coffee. Here, it's still warm. Latte? Less sugar, your favorite. The warmth seeped through the paper cup into my palm. How do you know what I like? You mentioned it once during a voice call. You said you don't like coffee that's too sweet, that latter just right. And less sugar isn't cloying. He said it casually, as if talking about the most ordinary thing in the world, but inside. When was that? Probably that first night he called. We chatted about all sorts of random things, and I casually mentioned my coffee preferences, something even I'd nearly forgotten. But he remembered it perfectly. We walked slowly along the road, Bat speaking. But that silence wasn't awkward at all. The setting sun stretched our shadows long and thin. Sometimes his shadow would touch mine, overlapping. I stared at those 2 shadows on the ground, lost in thought, and thought to myself, even our shadows are braver than we are. At least they dare to touch. Free this weekend? He asked suddenly. Saturday morning, I need to run to the supermarket for a few things. Afternoon is free. Then Saturday afternoon, I'll come with you to the supermarket. He said it as naturally as if we'd already been grocery shopping together 100 times. He happened to be looking at me at the same time. When our eyes met, we both laughed. At a polite, obligatory laugh, but the kind you can't hide, the kind that wells up from the very bottom of your heart. Like the first spoonful from the center of a watermelon in summer, cold and sweet, soothing your throat all the way down to your stomach. Saturday at 2 o'clock, he showed up right on time at the entrance to my building. When I came downstairs, I saw him standing under a locust tree. Sunlight filtered through the leaves, dappling him with light and shadow like a living painting. Today he wore a white short-sleeved shirt, sleeves rolled up to his elbows, revealing the lean, well-proportioned lines of his forearms. A simple watch on his wrist. The whole look was fresh and comfortable. Have you been waiting long? I asked. No, just got here. His gaze rested on me for a couple of seconds, then shifted away, but I noticed the tips of his ears had turned red again. We walked into the supermarket side by side. He naturally took the shopping bag from my hand. It was empty. I'd been planning to carry it myself, but he just reached out and took it. The movement so smooth it looked like he'd done it countless times before. The supermarket was fairly crowded. Weekend afternoons always our whole families pushing carts, bustling and noisy. Being with him felt especially comfortable. It was as if the people and sounds around us had faded in the background, and the entire world had shrunk down to just him and me. What do you need at home? He asked, pushing the cart, tilting his head to look at me. Laundry detergent is almost out. Not much tissue left either. Oh, and that brand of yogurt, I bought some last time and really liked it. Want to stock up? He listened attentively, then steered the cart straight toward the household section as accurately as if he worked at the supermarket. I couldn't help asking, how do you know where the laundry detergent is? Because last time you said you bought your detergent at the supermarket, and I checked which aisle that brand was on. He was looking down at the ingredients on a bottle of detergent as he spoke, his tone completely casual. But my heart ever the traitor gave another violent thump. How many small details about me had this man quietly memorized? Every single thing I'd ever said was he like a notebook, writing it all down in his mind. The feeling was strange, both precious and a little frightening. What if one day he stopped being like this? What would I do then? When we passed the snack aisle, he suddenly stopped, reached up to the shelf, and put a bag of peanuts into the cart. I looked at him. He explained, "Last time we had peanuts at your place, you said this brand was pretty good." I didn't say anything, but my lips had already curled up beyond my control. In the yogurt section, I crouched down to look for the brand I wanted. I searched for a while but couldn't find it. Just as I was about to stand up, I looked up and saw him standing right behind me, close enough that he was nearly touching my back. I shot up and almost hit his chin. We both froze for a second. Then he took half a step back, his ears red as if about to bleed. "Sorry, I didn't notice," he said first, his voice slightly unnatural. "It's okay," I said, my heart pounding like I just run 800 meters. Eventually we found that brand of yogurt, but there was only one roll left on the highest shelf. I stood on tiptoe and still couldn't reach it. He reached up and took it down from me. Throughout the whole process, his arm was practically wrapped around my shoulder. The feeling of being enveloped in his scent made me freeze entirely. Mixed with the scent of sun-dried cotton, I couldn't help wanting to breathe it in a little longer. "Here you go," he handed me the yogurt, then quickly stepped back, as if afraid that if he stayed 1 second longer he might do something reckless. I took the yogurt, my fingertips brushing against his. He flinched slightly but didn't pull his hand completely away. They just touched there and not there, like two people playing a game where whoever pulls away first loses. In the end, I was the one who let go first. I was afraid that if I kept touching him, I might do something embarrassing in the middle of the supermarket. I caught his hand and never let go. At the checkout, he beat me to the punch, handing over his card. "I've got it," he said, in a tone that left no room for argument. "It's okay. I can pay for myself. Last time you treated me to beer. This one's on me." His gaze earnest and stubborn. I couldn't argue with him looking at me like that, so I gave in. After he paid, he walked ahead, carrying both heavy bags. I followed behind, watching his back, and felt an unexpected sting in my nose. That feeling of being taken care of, it had been a very, very long time since I'd experienced it. I thought no one had ever been kind to me, but no one had ever been this quiet about it. This undramatic, so natural that it felt simply like the way things should be, not like a deliberate attempt to please. When we came out of the supermarket, the sky had darkened, and the streetlights were coming on one by one, casting a soft orange glow over the streets, making the night feel gentle and ambiguous. He insisted on carrying the bags all the way up to my apartment. I said he didn't have to 6th floor, no elevator. It was too tiring. He said it was fine. He could use the exercise. By the 4th floor, he was clearly out of breath, a thin layer of sweat on his forehead. But he stubbornly claimed he wasn't tired at all. I walked ahead, he followed behind. When I glanced back at him, he was looking down at the steps, beads of sweat sliding down his temples, glistening in the light. At that moment, a sudden impulse surged through me. I wanted to say something, but didn't know what. At my front door, I took out my keys to unlock it. He stood behind me waiting, his breathing still not fully steady. The door opened. I took the bags and set them down in the entryway. I turned around to thank him and found him still standing at the door. He didn't look like he was coming in, but he didn't look like he was leaving either. "Not coming in for a bit?" I asked. He hesitated, glanced down the hallway, then back at me. "Can't. Have to work tomorrow. You should get some rest. Be careful on the way then." "Yeah?" At his feet didn't move. We stood there for a few seconds, the threshold between us, just looking at each other. The motion sensor light in the hallway went out, leaving only the light spilling from my apartment to illuminate his face half bright, making his features look deeper than usual. "I'm going now," he finally said very softly. "Okay?" He turned and took the steps and stopped, his lips parting like he wanted to say something, but in the end he only said, "Good night." His footsteps echoed in the empty stairwell as he descended 1 step, 2 steps, and 3, growing fainter, farther, until they disappeared completely. I closed the door, leaned back against it, my heart pounding like a drum. In that moment just now, I thought he might turn back, might come and hold me, might kiss me. I'd do all the things the hero does in an ambiguous love story, but he didn't. That restraint left me both disappointed and moved. Disappointed because I'd actually wanted him to do those things. Moved because he hadn't. I knew he wasn't the casual type. He wouldn't do something impulsive just because the mood was right. He cared about me, so he cared about boundaries, about my feelings, about whether all of this was truly what I wanted. That kind of man, ironically, is the hardest to let go of. The days went by like that. The ambiguity grew, like water slowly being heated, the temperature rising, but never quite reaching a boil. I started to get used to his good morning and good night, his constant little reminders and gestures of concern, our weekend trips to the supermarket, our meals together, our afternoons curled up on the sofa watching boring movies. The intimacy between us intensified bit by bit, from hand-holding to hugging, from hugging to forehead touching, from forehead touching to the occasional 蜻蜓点水喵喵喵. But we never crossed our line. One time, we were at his place watching a movie. Halfway through, I fell asleep leaning on his shoulder. When I woke up, I found myself curled in his arms, his arm around my waist, his chin on top of my head, his breathing steady and slow. I didn't know when he'd fallen asleep, or how long we'd been in that position. All I knew was that when I opened my eyes, my face was pressed against his chest, and I could hear his strong heartbeat. His hand rested on my hip, warm, fingers slightly tightened, as if, even in sleep, he couldn't bear to let go. I didn't dare move, afraid of waking him. I just lay quietly in his arms, listening to his heartbeat, breathing in a sense, feeling a sense of peace I'd never known. In that moment, I thought if only time could stop right here. No need to move forward, no need to define the relationship, no need to put a label on this ambiguity. Just stop right here, in this embrace and the sound of his heartbeat. But he woke up. He looked down at me, eyes still hazy with sleep, his voice so hoarse it was barely recognizable. You're awake. Yeah. Sleep well. Pretty well. Your shoulder is comfortable. I crinkling smile and reached out to ruffle my hair, so gently, like petting a cat. Then you can use it any time. The words came out so naturally that for a split second I almost believed we were already the kind of couple who could casually say anytime. But he didn't continue, and I didn't have the nerve to ask. Anytime, what did that mean? Every day? Forever? That's ambiguity for you. It gives you a vague promise and makes you guess, fantasize, hope, and then takes its sweet time delivering. When autumn came, the weather gradually cooled. One night, I'd work late at the office. When I came out, the rain still hadn't stopped. I didn't have an umbrella. I stood under the awning at the company entrance, debating whether to make a run for it. It was him. Still at the office. Yeah. No umbrella. Stay there. How come did you? It's okay. The rain isn't heavy. Stay there. He repeated, his tone broking no argument. Then he hung up. 15 minutes later, his car pulled up in front of the company. The windshield wipers swung back and forth, rain streaming down the glass. He walked over holding a big black umbrella. His pants were soaked up to the calf, his shoes covered in water stains. But he didn't seem to mind at all. He held the umbrella over my head and said, "Let's go." I ducked under his umbrella. It was a big umbrella, but still a bit cramped for two. He simply put his arm around my shoulder and drew me closer to him. His shoulders were broad. In standing beside him, he felt like a wall blocking out the wind and rain. We stepped through the puddles to the car, waited until I was inside, then walked around to the driver's side. Inside, the heater was on. A thin layer of fog had formed on the windows. He grabbed a few tissues and handed them to me so I could dry myself off. Then he took his jacket from the back seat, "So you don't catch a cold." I didn't take it because I noticed that the entire left side of his shoulder was soaked. The umbrella had been tilted entirely toward me. He himself had been almost completely exposed to the rain. I looked at that of wet fabric, and something struck me hard in the chest, a sour, swelling feeling, caught somewhere between being touched and feeling sorry for him. "Your shoulder is soaked," I said. "It's fine. I'm thick-skinned, not afraid of a little rain." He grinned and started the car. Once the car was moving, the sound of the rain and the engine blended together. The cabin was warm and cozy. I wore his jacket, the sleeves too long, like a child playing dress-up. He glanced sideways at me and laughed. "You look good in that." "What looks good?" "In my clothes." I lowered my head, my face burning like I had a fever. But I couldn't suppress my smile. Ambiguity at this level wasn't really ambiguity anymore. It had become a kind of wordless mochimi, a promise that didn't need to be spoken. He knew I liked me. All that stood between us was one of us speaking first at the right moment. That moment came a month later. It was my birthday. I hadn't specifically told him, but somehow he'd found out. I came home from work and found a note stuck to my door. It said, "Open the door for a surprise." Each stroke written with attention. I pushed the door open. The room was dark, but on the dining table there was candlelight. He'd arranged several candles in the shape of a heart, and in the center was a cake. Written on the cake were the words, "Will you be my girlfriend?" I stood frozen in the doorway, stunned. I turned and saw him emerging from the shadows of the hallway, holding a bouquet of flowers, white baby's breath, had my favorite kind. "Happy birthday," he said. His voice trembled slightly. His eyes were nervous. The fingers holding the flowers were so tight that his knuckles had gone white. "How did you get in?" I asked, my brain still a mess. "Last time you told me you kept a spare key under the doormat." I remembered. He paused and took a deep breath. "I know this is a little forward, but I couldn't wait any longer." He stepped closer. The candlelight flickered on his face, making his eyes shine. Inside them I saw hope and nervousness, and a hint of fear of being rejected. "Suwon," he said, speaking my name as softly as if you were afraid of startling something. "I like you. That is a friend, the kind of like that wants to be with you. I want the first person I see every morning to be you. I want the last person I talk to every night to be you. I want to cook for you, hold an umbrella over you, warm your hands for you, give you everything I possibly can." He paused, looking at me, his eyes glistening. "Will you be my girlfriend?" My eyes grew hot. Tears welled up but didn't fall. I looked at his face, at the words on the cake, at the baby's breath petals glowing softly in the candlelight. All the hesitation and uncertainty vanished at that moment. Instead of answering, I walked over, rose on my tiptoes and kissed him. He froze for a second, then pulled me into a fierce embrace, his arms tightening around me as if trying to press me into his very bones. He kissed me back earnestly, fervently, as if making sure this was real, not a dream. I don't know how much time passed before we finally parted, for heads touching, breath mingling. He was panting, his voice so hoarse it was barely audible. "Does this mean yes?" I laughed. Tears finally fell, but they were happy tears. "Yes," I said. He laughed, then laughed like a child who'd just been given the best toy in the world, and pulled me into his arms again, his chin on top of my head, whispering over and over, "Thank you, thank you, thank you." In his arms I closed my eyes, listening to his strong heartbeat, breathing in his clean, soapy scent. All the ambiguity, all the uncertainty of the past months, in that moment, everything settled into place. Outside, someone was setting off fireworks. They exploded in the night sky with booming sounds, casting colorful lights through the window, falling over our tightly embraced forms. I suddenly remembered that sweltering summer night, when he stood downstairs and looked up at my window, saying the potatoes looked pretty. Back then, I'd wondered what this man meant. Now I finally knew. His meaning had been simple all along. He liked me, from a very long time ago. From the very first time he saw me. From the moment the potatoes cast its shadow on my curtain. From the moment he said, "I just wanted to see you." I liked him too. 以下接续上文，继续翻译那年夏天，暧昧是蝉鸣声里的甜的续写二部分。That summer, ambiguity was the sweetness hidden in the cicadas' chorus continuation. Neither of us slept that night after we made it official. We ate a small piece of the cake, and the rest ended up smeared all over each other's faces. He chased me around the room, and I hid behind the curtains, laughing so hard I could barely breathe. My whole body was trembling, not from fear, but from sheer happiness. He wiped the cream off the tip of my nose with the back of his hand, and then that hand stayed there, his thumb stropping my cheekbone over and over. His gaze was so tender it could drown a person. "Suwon." He said my name like he was addicted to it. Suwon. Suwon. How many times are you going to say it? Until you get tired of hearing it. Then you're going to be saying it for a very long time. As soon as the words left my mouth, I blushed. He lowered his head and laughed a deep, muffled laugh that rumbled up from his chest, hiking my cheek, pressed against him, tingle faintly. It was a strange sensation, as if his joy were transmitting to me through that contact, or perhaps our joy was the same thing, just being felt through to different body. Later we curled up on the sofa. He leaned against the armrest, and I curled into his lap, his fingers idly combed through my hair, from root to tip, over and over, like he was petting a cat. The TV was on, but no one was watching. The rain outside had stopped at some point, leaving only the drip of water from the eaves, by the clock counting the seconds of this night for us. "You know what?" he said suddenly, his voice muffled from above me. "Today is the happiest day I've had in 3 years. 3 years? Yeah, since the first day I saw you." I looked up at him. He looked down at me, a smear of cream still on his chin, a little comical, but his eyes were dead serious. "The first time you saw me? At that event?" "Yes." He reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. "You were wearing a white dress, your hair in a ponytail, carrying a sack of documents. You almost tripped on the steps when you ran over. Everyone laughed. You laughed to your eyes crinkling up, not embarrassed at all, I thought to myself, this girl is really beautiful. Because I fell beautifully, because of the way you laughed after you fell. Other people might have felt humiliated, embarrassed, but you were different. You laughed so freely, like falling wasn't a big deal, just laugh it off and move on. I thought to myself, this girl must have a really strong self living inside her. I was silent, not because I had nothing to say, but because he was so accurate it was almost unsettling, as if he'd known me for a very long time. That feeling of being truly seen was both frightening and addictive. Frightening because you couldn't hide anything from him. In this world, there was someone willing to take the time to truly understand you, not just scratch the surface. And then, I asked, why didn't you ever talk to me after that? I was scared. He said it bluntly. You were so popular in school. What was I? A senior from a different department, not handsome. Didn't even know how to start a conversation. I thought about it for a long time and decided I'd just be embarrassing myself. So why did you dare this time? He lowered his head, his lips brushing my forehead, his voice muffled. Because that night I worked late. But when I passed by your building and saw your window light on, it suddenly hit me, if I didn't go now, I might never have another chance. I didn't want to be old and regret not having the courage to go upstairs and sit with a girl who lived only 3 kilometers away from me. I turned over in his arms to face him, and reached up to touch his face. His jawline hard and angular under my fingers. My fingers traced from his brow to the bridge of his nose, from his nose to his lips, and his lips were soft, slightly parted, his breath falling on my fingertips, hot enough to make them tremble. Ben Chuyang, I said. What you wrote on the cake today, were you serious? Which part? The will you be my girlfriend part? Yes. I wrote it, erased it, wrote it again 3 times before I got it right. There was a hint of embarrassment in his voice. First time, the letters were too big. Second time, the cream was too soft and it melted. Third time, it was barely acceptable. Do you know how long I spent on it? Just practicing those words took me an entire afternoon. I couldn't help laughing. And as I laughed, seeing my eyes redden, he panicked, fumbling to wipe my tears away, saying, Don't cry, don't cry. Did I say something wrong again? No, I sniffled. I'm just thinking, how can you be this good? He froze for a moment, then pulled me tightly into his arms, so tightly that I could feel his heartbeat fast and strong, like a drum pounding against my chest. Suwon, his voice muffled in my hair. You have no idea how long I've waited for this day. I remember every detail of that night with perfect clarity. The temperature of his palm, the rhythm of his breathing, the vibration of his chest when he spoke, the curve of his eyes when he smiled. Those details felt as if they'd been carved into my bones. In the years that followed, every time I remembered them, they would be as clear as if they'd happened yesterday. Life after we became official was sweeter than the ambiguous days and more solid too. Before, whenever he was kind to me, I'd have to endlessly analyze what he meant. Does he really like me? Or is he just fond of me? Or just playing around? Now I didn't have to guess anymore. We could walk down the street holding hands openly. We could introduce each other to friends as my boyfriend without hesitation. We could call each other late at night to say, I miss you, without worrying about being too forward. But that openness didn't make the heart-pounding thrill of the ambiguous period disappear. Instead, with a sense of security, that thrill became purer. Once, we went to see a movie, a romance about two people who meet, get to know each other, and fall in love in a foreign country. There was a line in the movie that I especially loved. The heroine said, I used to think love should be grand and passionate, full of solemn vows, the kind that everyone knows about. Later I understood real love doesn't need any of that. And then stay. My eyes got a little wet when I heard that line. I glanced over at him. He was looking at the screen, but his hand reached over and took my fingers interlacing, his thumb gently stroking the back of my hand. He wasn't looking at me, but his hand said it more powerfully than any sweet words. I'm here. After the movie, we walked around the mall for a bit, passing a jewelry store. I glanced twice at a bracelet in the window, a silver chain with a tiny star charm. Very simple and delicate. I didn't say I wanted it, didn't even stop, just looked twice. But he noticed. That weekend when he came to see me, he handed me a little paper bag. Inside was that bracelet. When did you buy it? I asked, surprised. After the movie, when I said I was going to the bathroom, I actually went back to buy it. I didn't know if you'd like it. I just thought the way you looked at it, it seemed like you really liked it. I held out my wrist, and he put it on for me. His fingers were a little clumsy. It took him several tries to fasten it. His fingertips brushed the skin on the inside of my wrist, cool, ticklish. When it was on, he held my hand and turned it over a few times, then nodded with satisfaction. Looks good. You? I looked at him, my chest warm as if I were holding a little sun inside me. Can you please not be so good to me? I'm going to get used to it. Then get used to it, he said, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. I plan to be good to you for the rest of your life. It won't work if you don't get used to it. For the rest of your life. He said it as casually as if you were discussing what to eat tomorrow. But I knew he wasn't just talking. This man, from the first day he met me, had memorized every word I said, every gesture I made, and had used actions to tell me, bit by bit, I'm serious. Near the end of autumn, we had our first fight as a couple. It started over something very small. He was called into work on the weekend at the last minute, and we'd had plans to go hiking. When he called to tell me he couldn't make it, I said it's okay with my mouth, but inside I was actually quite upset, not because he had to work, but because when he called, there was a female co-worker's voice in the background, sweetly calling him Shu Yang-ji. He responded, and his tone was perfectly natural. I know it's a normal co-worker relationship, but I couldn't help feeling uncomfortable. After I hung up, I sat at home nursing my resentment. The more I thought about it, the more aggrieved I felt. Why hadn't he told his work in advance that he had plans? Why didn't he correct his co-worker when she called him Shu Yang-ji? He showed up after work around 9 o'clock. The moment he walked in, he saw me curled up on the sofa, eyes red to untouched takeout containers on the coffee table. What's wrong? He walked over and reached out to pat my head. I turned away. Suwon, you and your female co-worker seem pretty close, I said, my voice dripping with more jealousy than even I thought was reasonable. He blinked, then burst out laughing. That made me even angrier. I grabbed a throw pillow and threw it at him. What are you laughing at? He caught the pillow, crouched down, and put both hands on my knees, his gaze earnest and gentle. She calls me Shu Yang-ji because she's new. Because she's new, she calls everyone that me, Shu Yang-ji, Shu Yang-ji. It's just a title, it doesn't mean anything. Then why do you answer so naturally? Am I supposed to ignore her? Wouldn't that be weirder? He said, his thumb drawing circles on my knee. I told you I'm serious about you. What other people call me doesn't matter. What matters is that you're the only one in my heart. Do you really need to doubt that? I had no comeback. I just lowered my head and said nothing. He sighed, sat on the sofa, and pulled me into his arms. I struggled a little, but not hard enough to break free, so I just stayed there. Can you let me know in advance next time you have to work on the weekend? I mumbled. I was looking forward to it all week. I'll tell you in advance. He kissed the top of my head. Anything else you're unhappy about? Tell me everything. I'll change it all. Can you ask your female co-worker not to call you Shu Yang-ji? But I really can't control. Her mouth is on her face. Then just stay away from her. I'll stay away from her. He laughed, his tone like he was soothing a pouty child. I burrowed closer to him, burying my face in his chest, and whispered, I didn't mean to lose my temper. I just care about you too much. His body stiffened slightly, and he held me tighter. I know, he said, his voice a little hoarse. Me too. I care about you so much that I want to do everything perfectly. But this is my first relationship too. There are a lot of things I don't do well. Please be patient with me. This is your first relationship. I looked up at him, incredulous. Yeah? A little embarrassed. I don't seem like it. You're too good at this. I'd have thought you'd had several girlfriends before. I'm not good at it. He looked at me seriously. Because it's you. So I'm willing to put in the effort to remember what you like and what you don't. If it were someone else, I probably wouldn't even remember her name. That sentence made my nose sting, and my eyes redden again. He panicked, fumbling to wipe my tears. Why are you crying again? Did I say something wrong? No, I sniffled. He said something so right that it made me emotional. He laughed helplessly and pulled me back into his arms, his chin on top of my head. Suwon, do you know how much you cry? From the day I met you until now, I've lost count of how many times you've cried. That's because you keep making me cry. I made you cry? I move you to tears. There's a difference. What's the difference? A huge difference. He said, making you cry means I did something wrong. Moving you to tears means I did something right. So from now on, I'll work hard to do more right things and fewer wrong things. I was dizzy from his reasoning and just leaned against him without speaking. Outside, the last few leaves of autumn swirled down under the street tilted. I thought if only time could stop right here, in this night after our first fight and reconciliation, in the warm rhythm of his heartbeat against my chest, in the gentle palm patting my back. When winter came, our intimacy deepened another layer. That day, the first snow of the season fell. The snowflakes were small, delicate, melting in the palm before you could get a good look. We'd agreed to go to the supermarket together to buy ingredients for hot pot at home. He arrived before me and waited outside the supermarket entrance. His head and shoulders were dusted with a thin layer of snow, the tip of his nose red from cold, his breath puffing out in white clouds. Had he been waiting long? I ran over and stood on tiptoe to brush the snow off his shoulders. No, just got here. He reached out to adjust my scarf, his fingertips brushing my chin cool. Why are you dressed so lightly? Aren't you cold? No, I ran all the way here. I'm sweating. He didn't quite believe me. He took my hand, squeezed my fingertips, and only relaxed when he confirmed they weren't cold. Okay, let's go inside. The supermarket had strong heating. Once inside, he took off his coat and draped it over the shopping cart, wearing just a dark sweater, sleeves rolled up to his elbows, revealing the lean but defined muscles of his forearms. I stared at his arms for 2 seconds, and he caught me. What are you looking at? He asked with a smile. You, I said, completely unashamed. He choked, the tips of his ears turning red again, and pushed the cart quickly ahead. I followed behind. This man, even after all this time together, he still blushed so easily. Every time I saw his ears go red, I couldn't resist teasing him. When we finished shopping and came out, the snow had gotten heavier, and a thin layer had accumulated on the ground. He took off his coat and put it over my shoulders, walking through the snow in just his sweater. I said he didn't have to, but he wouldn't listen, insisting he wasn't cold. He'd taken only 2 steps when he sneezed. And you said you weren't cold. I tried to hand his coat back to him. He wouldn't take it, so I just stopped walking. After a couple of steps, he realized I wasn't following and turned around. I stood there holding his coat, with an expression that said, I'm not moving until you put this on. He sighed, walked back, but instead of taking the coat, he wrapped us both inside it. That coat wasn't very big to begin with. The two of us huddled together inside. It was a tight squeeze. He put one arm around my waist and used the other to hold the coat over both of us. I pressed against his chest, my face buried in his sweater, breathing in that clean scent of soap, my ear against his chest, listening to his strong heartbeat. Our shoulders had clasped hands, but I wasn't cold at all, because his arms were warm. See, how you're not cold, he said, his voice coming from above me, tinged with laughter. You're cheating. I learned it from you. When did I ever cheat? Every time you can't win an argument, you cry. Isn't that cheating? I wanted to argue, but realized he was right, so I just stayed quiet, nestling contentedly in his arms. But in that moment, the world became exceptionally clear with only his heartbeat, his warmth, and the pressure of his arms around me. Ben Shuyan, I said, my voice muffled. Can we do this every year when it snows? Do what? Pisse. You holding me holding you, both of us squeezed into one coat. He was silent for 2 seconds, then his arms tightened, his chin pressed against the top of my head, and his voice was low. He was making a vow. Okay, every year. That night at home, we had a hot pot, drank a little wine, and in a state of pleasant tipsiness, leaned against each other watching the snow fall outside the window. The heating was on full blast, the room warm and cozy. A layer of condensation had formed on the window pane. He used his finger to draw a heart in it, and inside the heart wrote 2 letters W and Y, the initials of my name and his. I looked at those 2 letters, and indescribable warmth flooded my heart. I thought back to that sweltering summer night, when he stood downstairs looking up at my window, saying the potters looked pretty. The ambiguity back then had been as loud and passionate as the cicada's song. Now our love was as quiet and deep as the snow. Different forms, but the same source. He wanted to be close to me, and I wanted to be close to him. From the very beginning, we had been walking toward each other, cautiously, but every step counted. The alcohol went to my head, and my courage grew. He stood up from the sofa, unstraddled his lap. I cupped his face in my hands, my thumbs stroking his cheekbones. He froze completely, his ears red enough to bleed, his hands hovering in the air uncertainly before finally resting lightly on my waist so gently, as if afraid of breaking something. Suwon, his voice shook. She pressed my index finger to his lips, then leaned down and kissed him. This kiss was different from all the ones before. Our previous kisses had been tentative, restrained, ready to stop at any moment. But this kiss was different, carrying the slight intoxication of wine and the unique warmth of a winter night. His hand slid from my waist to my back, pulling me closer to him. One hand threaded into my hair, his fingertips gently pressing against my scalp, sending shivers through me. The kiss moved from my lips to the corner of my mouth, and the corner of my mouth to my jaw, from my jaw to my earlobe. When he took my earlobe between his lips, I went soft in his arms, leaning against his shoulder. my breathing rapid and hot. His lips brushed against my ear, his voice so low it was almost inaudible. Suwon, are you sure? I closed my eyes and nodded against his shoulder. He lifted me and carried me into the bedroom. I could feel his arms trembling slightly, whether from nerves or excitement, or both. He laid me gently on the bed and braced himself above me, looking down. The bedroom was dark, with only the light from the street lamp filtering through the gap in the curtains, falling on his face and carving his features into something soft and profound. Look at me, he said. I opened my eyes and met his gaze. In those eyes, I saw tenderness, seriousness, carefulness, and a barely concealed longing. He pushed my hair aside, his fingertips grazing my neck and sending a shiver down my spine. Suwon, he said, his voice so hoarse it barely sounded like him. If I do something wrong, tell me. I reached up and touched his face, my thumb brushing across his lips. You won't, because it's you. He lowered his head and kissed my forehead, then the tip of my nose, then my lips. That kiss was very light, very slow, like unwrapping a precious gift, each layer peeled away with reverence and care. His hand slid from my shoulder to my arm, from my arm to my fingertips. Our fingers interlaced, palms pressed together just like that first time by the window. Only now, there was no distance left between us at all. The snow continued to fall outside the window, flake after flake landing silently on the sill. The sheets rustled, his breath and mine tangled together, impossible to tell apart. At one moment I opened my eyes and saw a thin sheen of sweat on his forehead. His brows slightly furrowed, but his gaze never left me, as if afraid that if he closed his eye, I might disappear. I reached up to wipe the sweat from his forehead. He turned his head and kissed my palm, his lips dry and warm, like a sun-warmed feather brushing against my skin, ticklish, tingly. Does it hurt? A little, I said, my voice soft as a sigh. He stopped, resting his forehead against mine, his breathing heavy and hot against my face. Do you want to stop? I shook my head, looped my arms around his neck, and pulled him closer. Don't stop. He kissed me again, even more gently than before, so gentle it made me want to cry. Not from being treated with such care, such tenderness. In this world, there was someone willing to slow down for you, someone who would stop when you said it hurt, someone who turned every moment of closeness into a question. Is this okay? Are you all right? Do you want to continue? That feeling of being held so carefully, so preciously, was more stirring than any sweet words. Later we lay quietly. He held me in his arms, his fingers drawing circles on my back slowly, steadily, like soothing a startled kitten. I buried my face in the hollow of his neck, breathing in his scent, and listened to his heartbeat gradually slow from a gallop to a steady rhythm. Suwon, he said. Thank you. For what? For trusting me, he said, his voice muffled in my hair. For giving yourself to me. I know this isn't a casual thing for you, so I promise you I won't let it become a casual thing. In the darkness, his eyes shone like the stars. In them I saw seriousness, solemnity, and something else I couldn't quite name. Later, I thought about it for a long time and finally understood what it was. Lin Shuyan, I said, will you ever change? Change out? Stop liking me? Lose patience with me? Find me annoying? He was silent for 2 seconds. Then he turned over, bracing himself above me again, and cupped my face in both hands. His thumbs wiped away tears at the corners of my eyes, tears I hadn't even realized had fallen. Suwon, listen to me, he said, enunciating each word. I didn't get together with you on a whim. I got together with you because I like you, your smile, your temper, the way you pout when you're sulking, the way you act clingy when you're in my arms, all your good parts and all your bad parts. None of that will change with time. None of it will change because of anything. How can you be so sure? Because I've already liked you for 3 years, he said. You didn't even know I existed, and I still liked you. Now that you're here with me, I'm only going to like you more, not less. I couldn't speak. My throat was blocked by something, a sour, swelling thing that trapped all my words, so I just reached out and held him, burying my face in his chest, letting my tears fall silently, wetting his shirt. He didn't say anything more. He just held me, patting my back slowly, steadily, like soothing a child, until I fell asleep in his arms. That was the most peaceful night of my 26 years of life. 以下接续上文，继续翻译那年夏天，暧昧是蝉鸣声里的甜的续写3部分完。That summer. Ambiguity was the sweetness hidden in the cicada's chorus continuation. I woke up the next morning because sunlight was shining in my eyes. The curtains hadn't been pulled all the way shut. A golden beam of light had squeezed through the gap and landed right on my eyelids. I turned over groggily, reaching out, and my hand landed on warm skin. My eyes flew open, Lin Shuyan was lying on his side, propping his head up with one hand, looking down at me. I had no idea how long he'd been awake. "Morning," he said, his voice husky with sleep, a lazy smile at the corner of his lips. "When did you wake up?" I instinctively pulled the blanket up to cover half my face, leaving only my eyes to look at him. "A little after 6, he said, reaching out to tug the blanket down from my face. "I saw everything last night. Covering up now won't do any good." My face went bright red. I grabbed a pillow and threw it at him. He laughed and dodged, then pulled me blanket and all into his arms. His chin rested on top of my head, and his chest rumbled with low laughter, vibrating against my cheek. "Suwan," he said, "You drool when you sleep." "Oh." I jerked my head up, eyes wide. He extended his index finger and pointed at his collarbone. There was a small, faint watermark. "The evidence is still here. Want me to take a picture for you?" I wished the floor would open up and swallow me. I buried my face in the pillow and refused to come out. He laughed uncontrollably beside me, and after a long while, he finally fished me out of the pillow, cupped my face in his hands, and brushed his thumbs over my heated, blushing cheekbones. "I'm kidding," he said, his gaze so tender it couldn't possibly belong to someone who was joking. "You sleep very nicely." Nose like to burrow into my arms and stay plastered against me all night, like a little koala. "Do you like it?" "Like it," he said, leaning down to kiss the tip of my nose. "Like it more than anything." That morning passed very, very slowly. We stayed in bed, unwilling to get up, chatting about this and that. He told me about the cat he had as a child, who loved to sleep on his chest and would scratch him awake every time he turned over. I told him about the rabbit I had as a child, who was such a picky eater that it would only eat the tenderest tips of the carrot and waste the rest. Somehow the conversation drifted to embarrassing childhood stories. He admitted that at age 6 he tried on his mother's high heels, fell, and chipped half a front tooth. I laughed so hard I cried, and while my mouth was open from laughing, he leaned down and kissed me. That kiss carried the fresh, clean taste of morning toothpaste and the hint of coffee bitterness during the hours he'd woken up before me. He'd already gotten up, brushed his teeth, had coffee, and even gone downstairs to buy breakfast, afraid it would get cold, waiting to heat it up until I woke up. Soybean milk, fried toast sticks, and a bowl of century egg and lean pork congy, all my favorites. "What time did you go downstairs to buy this?" I sat at the table, took a sip of the soybean milk warm, just the right sweetness. "A little after 7, he said. "I was afraid of waking you, so I tiptoed out the door, then tripped in the stairwell and nearly rolled all the way down from the 6th floor. Are you okay?" I looked him over anxiously. "I'm fine," he said, pulling up his pant leg to show me. There was a small bruise on his knee, just a little scrape, no big deal. I crouched down, gently touching the bruise with my fingertip, my heart aching. "Don't go down that early anymore, sleep a little longer. I can make my own breakfast." "Yours doesn't count as breakfast, T." He laughed, ruffling my hair. "Last time you made me congy, the rice was rice and the water was water. I suspect you just washed the rice and dumped it into boiling water." "That's because I haven't learned it yet." I pouted. "I'm not like you can do everything." "Then I'll teach you," he said, pulling me up from the floor and putting both hands on my shoulders, looking at me seriously. "We'll go grocery shopping together, and when we come back, we'll teach you how to cook. We'll start with the simplest scrambled eggs with tomatoes and move on to braised pork ribs. Then what?" he says him. "Then anything you want to learn," he said. "As long as you want to learn, I'll teach you." I looked at his serious expression, and a wave of warmth washed over me. This man always used the most ordinary methods to make the longest-lasting promises. He didn't say, "I'll always be with you." He said, "I'll teach you how to cook," because learning to cook takes time, and during that time, he would always be there. After breakfast, while he was helping me wash the dishes, I stood beside him and watched, falling on him and gilding his light-colored sweater. He washed the dishes with practiced his chopsticks first, then bowls and the pot, the order never changing. The water ran, bubbles forming between his fingers and popping. The whole seemed quiet and beautiful, like a living painting. I came up behind him and wrapped my arms around his waist, pressing my face against his back. His waist was narrow but solid through the sweater. I could feel the lines of his abdominal muscles. His hands paused for a moment, then went back to washing. He didn't speak, but I could feel his body relax slightly, leaning back a little, pressing me more firmly against him. "Lin Shuyang," I said, my voice muffled. Will we get married someday?" He turned off the tap, dried his hands, and turned around to face me. Lowered my head to look away, but he reached out, lifted my chin, and made me meet his eyes. "Suwon," he said, his tone so serious it didn't sound like a response to a casual question. "From the day I decided to pursue you, I was aiming for marriage." "Really?" "Really," he said. "I'm not the type to start a relationship casually. I got together with you because I want to spend my life with you. Out 1 year, not 2 years, a lifetime." My eyes stung me then. Ever since I'd been with him, I turned into someone who cried at the drop of a hat. He could say anything and make me want to cry. Seeing that I was about to cry, he sighed and pulled me into his arms, his chin on top of my head, his voice muffled. "You're crying again. It's because you keep saying things that make me want to cry." "Then I won't say them anymore." "No, you still have to say them." He laughed, his chest shaking with it. "Suwon, how can you be so contradictory?" "I am contradictory," I mumbled against his chest. "It's not like you just met me yesterday." That afternoon, he took me to meet his best friend. His best friend's name was Lu Yiming, his college roommate. Now programmer at an internet company. Lu Yiming's girlfriend was Xu Xiaoman, a kindergarten teacher with 2 dimples and a voice as soft as cotton candy. We met at a Korean barbecue restaurant. I followed Lin Shuyang inside. Lu Yiming was in the middle of putting meat on the grill. When he looked up and saw us, the tongs nearly fell out of his hand. "Holy shit," he said. "Eyes going round. Shuyang, you actually got a girlfriend. I thought you were kidding me. When have I ever joked with you?" Lin Shuyang pulled me down to sit beside him, his tone calm, but I noticed the tips of his ears turning red again. Zhu Xiaoman sat across from us, smiling at me with open curiosity and warmth. "Hi, I'm Zhu Xiaoman. Just call me Xiaoman." "Hi, I'm Suwon." "Suwon, what a pretty name," Zhu Xiaoman said, then kicked Lu Yiming under the table. "Aren't you going to say hello? What are you just standing there for?" Lu Yiming snapped out of it, scratched his head, and gave a sheepish grin. Hello, I'm Lu Yiming, Shuyang's college classmate, roommate, and best friend. Let me tell you, Shuyang is grey in every way except when he's repressed. He liked you for 3 years and didn't dare say anything. In the end, I had to push him to do it." "You pushed him?" I glanced sideways at Lin Shuyang. His ears were already red enough to bleed. "Yeah," Lu Yiming said. "He came over after work to bum a meal at my place. We were drinking, and he started sighing, going on about she's right there. But I don't even have the courage to send a message. I got pissed just listening to him. I said, 'You're a grown man if you like her. Go for it. Worst case, she says no. It's not like you'll lose a limb.' I lectured him all night, and finally he worked up the courage to send you that message. I remembered that sweltering summer night, the message that I popped up on my phone screen. Asleep yet, him standing downstairs, looking up at my window. I just wanted to see you," in that deliberately calm voice. So behind that message, there was someone else giving him a push, someone else's sleepless, agonizing nights. "Thank you," I said, looking at Lu Yiming seriously. "Thank you for pushing him." Lu Yiming froze for a second, then burst out laughing, rocking back and forth. "Shuyang, did you hear that? She said thank you. Look how generous she is. And look at you, a mute gourd." Under the table, Lin Shuyang took my hand and squeezed my fingers. I looked sideways at him. There was a very faint smile at the corner of his lips, and his eyes were full of tenderness. I knew he was too embarrassed to say anything sappy in front of his friends, but the hand-holding minds in it all. That barbecue meal was a lot of fun. Lu Yiming was a talker. He chattered non-stop. From embarrassing stories about Lin Shuyang in college to his current frustrations at work, interspersed with several terrible puns that, despite being awful, made us all laugh. Zhu Xiaoman was an incredibly gentle girl, constantly refiling everyone's drinks and serving food, occasionally chiming in with a soft. Halfway through the meal, Lu Yiming suddenly raised his glass, saying he wanted to toast us. "Shuyang, Suwon," he said, for once setting aside his jokester expression and looking at us seriously. "I know him inside out. He doesn't fall for someone easily, but once he does, it's for life. Suwon, rest assured, he won't let you down." Lin Shuyang raised his glass and clinked it against Lu Yiming's, but his eyes were a little red. I raised my own glass, clinked it against Lu Yiming's, and said softly, "Thank you, Yiming." That meal lasted nearly 3 hours. When we came out, the sky was already dark, the streets were on, people hurried by, and the air smelled of barbecue mixed with the cold wind of winter. Lin Shuyang held my hand, fingers interlaced, palm against palm. His hand was big, wrapping entirely around mine, warm as a hot water bottle. "Cold?" he asked. "No." He looked down at the shoes I was wearing and frowned. "You're wearing too little. Those shoes are so thin your feet must be freezing." I lied about not being cold. In truth, my toes were already numb. But I was too embarrassed to say so. Without a word, he pulled me over to a bench on the side of the road, sat me down, crouched in front of me, took off my shoes, and tucked my feet inside his coat, pressing them against the sweater underneath. His stomach was warm, and my feet touched it. A wave of heat shot from my soles straight to the top of my head. I was completely stunned. I looked down at Lin Shu-yang, crouched in front of me, head bowed, earnestly warming my feet, his expression as focused as if he were performing a very important task. Lin Shu-yang, my voice trembled. Wait a minute. They're not warm yet, he said, tucking my other foot into his coat as well. Passers-by turned to stare. Some pointed and laughed. Some pulled out their phones to take pictures. My face was burning, but my heart was as sweet as if it were soaked in honey. This man never cared about what other people thought. He only cared about whether I was cold, whether I was hungry, whether I was happy. Once my feet were warm, he helped me put my shoes back on, stood up, dusted off his knees, and took my hand again as if nothing had happened. Come on. I'll walk you home. Lin Shu-yang. Can you please not do that in public anymore? People are staring. It's embarrassing. And I'll do it where there aren't any people, he said, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. I just let him lead me along. The street had stretched our shadows long and long, the two overlapping into a single, complete, inseparable whole. When we reached the entrance to my building, he stopped and turned to face me, hands in his coat pockets, head tilted. We're here. Go on up. What about you? I'll watch you go up first. Do you want to come up for a bit? I asked, my heart starting to race again. He looked at me, his eyes deepening, a slow smile spreading across his lips. Suwon, do you know what you're asking? Of course I knew, but I wasn't afraid anymore, because I was already certain this was someone worth giving all my trust to. I know. Rising on my tiptoes to whisper in his ear, so do you want to come up? He looked down at me, a small flame burning in his eyes. Bright as anything, he reached out, cupped my face in his hands, his thumb brushing across my lips, and said in a voice so low only I could hear, Suwon, you little troublemaker. Then he took my hand and led me into the stairwell. The motion sensor lights came on, floor by floor, casting our shadows on the steps, one in front, one behind, one tall, one short like a silent dance. I followed behind him, watching his back, his broad shoulders, the clean nape of his neck, all outlined in the warm glow of the stairwell lights. When we reached the 4th floor, he suddenly stopped and turned around. I didn't have time to brake and crashed right into his chest. He took the opportunity to put his arm around my waist, pressing me against the wall, then looked down at me. The motion sensor light went out. The stairwell was pitch black, lit only by the faint moonlight filtering in through a distant window. In the darkness, his breathing was especially clear, warm against my face, carrying a faint trace of alcohol and the coolness of mint. Suwon, his voice was low and raspy in the darkness. Do you know, from the very first time I saw you, I've imagined this scene countless times. What scene? This in an empty stairwell, holding you, kissing you, no one around to bother us. I reached out in the darkness and found his face, my fingertips tracing from his brow to the bridge of his nose, from his nose to his lips parted slightly, his breath falling on my fingertips, hot enough to make them tremble. What are you waiting for then? I said. He lowered his head and kissed me. That kiss was different from the ones in the supermarket, in the car, at home. In the dark stairwell, there was no light, no sound, no outside interference. The entire world had shrunk to just our breathing and our heartbeats. His hand slid from my waist to my back, pulling me flush against him so tightly that I could feel his heart beating inside his chest, the rhythm exactly the same as mine. I too drums struck by the same hands. The motion sensor light came on. We pulled apart, looked at each other. A light went out. He kissed me again. The light came on. We pulled apart again. On and on like two high school kids secretly dating, savoring the sweetness only they knew about in an empty stairwell. I don't know how long passed before he finally released me. His forehead against mine, both of us gasping for breath. Let's go, B said, his voice hoarse beyond recognition. If we stay here any longer, I'm afraid I won't be able to control myself. I laughed, took his hand, and walked up step by step, 6th floor, 63 steps, each one landing squarely on my heartbeat. At my front door, as I took out my keys to unlock it, his hands came from behind to behold the keys. His fingers covered mine, guiding my hand as they inserted the key into the lock and turned it gently. The door opened. The room was streamed in through the window, falling on that pot of potatoes. The leaves swayed faintly in the night breeze. He stood at the door, coming in just like last time, but this time, he didn't say goodnight. "Suwon," he said, "can I come in?" I looked into his eyes. In the moonlight, they shone like the stars. I reached out, grabbed the collar of his shirt, and pulled him through the doorway, and then I closed the door. THEND